Okay, this tutorial we're going to explore the drawing tools, the basic drawing tools, and get a little more into outline and centerline text. Let's start a new project, 12 by 5.5 by 3/4, and click OK. Okay, so let's start with just a brief overview of what all of the drawing tools here. So this toolbar right here, this is the basic drawing toolbar that comes with everybody's software. It may be up here in your menu rather than where I've got it over on the sidebar. I prefer to have all my drawing tools together. Let's look at what each of these tools do. The first tool here is your line segment tool, and it does exactly what it says. It's just going to put one segment of a line down, a starting point and then an ending point, and then of course these can be manipulated and edited and moved around however you want. If we click on that black arrow next to it, we can get the next one in the menu here, connected lines tool. It does exactly what it says too. It's going to actually put line segments down continuously, so they will be connected so you can continuously draw a shape. And here's another thing that's important, is the little crosshairs of when you are encountering another node or vertex means it's going to connect to those vertexes. Also, if you've got an open shape like this and you want to close it, you can actually grab one of those nodes and then drag it over and hover it next to another open-ended point and then connect those together, making it a closed shape. So let's explore the next one in line here, the spline tool. The spline tool is actually going to create tangent curve. So it's going to create a curve that's actually a continuation of the first point, and there's ways to edit and manipulate these too that we'll get into later, but you just continually can move around adding these points in and also make a closed, more organic shape. Let's remove those. And you can also use these in conjunction. So I can put a couple points down, go over here, select the spline tool, and then go back and forth between these tools to create a drawing that has multiple elements together. There's one other drawing piece in here that we should look at. Of course, we've got squares and rectangles. I think everybody understands those. Circles and ovals, but then we have arcs as well. Arcs kind of work into the same category of lines and the splines in a way, in that it's an element that you can use to connect two vertexes together to help create custom closed shapes. So I can create any of these shapes using lines, splines, and arcs. We also have the ability to take any one of these individual segments in between these vertexes, and we can right click on those and we can change their form. So I can change it from a line segment that it is here, and I can make it into an arc or a spline. And so I can make that conversion. So if I quickly draw something out, I can then go through and edit each individual segment and change it to what I want it to be. I can go through and make them all splines if I need to be, or if I want them to be. I can make them all arcs. I can make every other one, whatever it happens to be that I need them to be for the purpose of whatever I'm drawing. Let's connect those together. We've also got other further editing tools. So if we go up here under View, we'll have these toggle control points. If we turn that on, we're going to see these little blue dots, which these are part of the splines. They are called control handles that we can then actually manipulate the curves of those splines. So we can pull them out more, we can exaggerate them, and this is where we can get into the really powerful ability to draw, because then you can really fine-tune each segment of whatever you're drawing. We also have what we call the constraint numbers. So anytime you click on one of these numbers, first of all, if you click on one of these numbers and you just want to get out of it, press the escape key and it'll escape you out of that number. But what these are for is these are input fields that actually allow you to type in dimensional information so that you can be very precise in the layout of your drawings. So I can put the number 2 in here and I can set that arc there at a 2-inch radius, and you'll see that it says R2. So it's coming from the center point of that radius, or that arc there, and then determining the radius, and we can input that in there. So we can put constraints into every part of everything that we are designing here, including how far away they are from axis lines. So this is an attach point. This green arrow is pointing. This is how far it is from the center axis line on the horizon here. So we can also create our own attach points. We don't have to rely on the arrows to just appear. We can right click on any one of these points and then select attach and then point it at any one of these edges or axis points that we want to. So if we're trying to get into a very precise arrangement or layout where we really need our positioning information known, we can type that information in and make it as precise as we want. So this may be a little more sophisticated than what a lot of people are needing out of their drawing tools, at least initially on a basic level, but these types of functionalities make this drawing capabilities of this software extremely powerful. And then we have additional drawing capabilities when you get into the vector drawing suite that gives you some even more powerful tools. So let's look at a couple other options that we've got in here as well. We can right click on any of these lines and we can go in and insert vertex. We can create another point, so if we need to add another detail or another curve into some section, we can go and add an extra vertex in there. We can also right click on there and break it, so we can pull it apart and make it not a closed shape if we need it to be opened back up for whatever reason. We can also right click on any of those vertexes and then select remove, and then that point will remove from any point in this. So you've got complete control over how you manipulate these drawing tools. So in an overview sense, it's like, okay, well, you can make random ugly shapes here that don't seem to actually make anything, but we're going to put this in application so it makes a little more sense. So to do that, let's start off by going to our layout tool and choosing snap. Now this is where we're going to turn on our grid. So we're going to select view grid. Right now it's at an interval of 0.5, a half an inch, which is a good interval, especially for this size board. So I'm going to stick with that. We're going to select center grid, which will align the grid along the center axis lines. And then we're going to select snap objects to grid and then click OK. Okay, so our grid lines then show up here on the board, and we've got our snap turned on. You can turn it off and on from the shortcut keys in your toolbars. Toggle snap to grid. So let's use the connected line tool to just quickly draw in a shape here, and it's going to snap right to those grids, so it makes an easy, perfectly drawn shape without any big effort. And now we can further go in and start changing some of these elements. So let's right click on that line and let's change it, the form, to an arc. Let's do the same thing all the way around. Now I should note here, these constraint boxes that we talked about, sometimes they're in the way, and we do have a tool called toggle labels that allows you to turn those off and get them out of the way if there's too many of them in a tight space and you just want them out of the way. So let's continue this on. So now we've got a nice rounded corner rectangle. So let's continue. Let's change these ones on the end to arcs as well. Alright, now we have a fairly nice little sign shape that we're going to use. So what we've been doing here with the drawing tools is creating what we call vectors. So vectors are line information. It's a different type of graphic than what our patterns were, which we call rasters, and you'll see these words used in the literature and other tutorials talking about just graphic software in general, but definitely with CarveWright software as well. So the rasters are made up of pixels, tiny little squares that create an overall image, and then to carve a raster, that's where the machine goes line by line, and just like a printer does, and rasters, it's actually the process of going line by line is actually called rastering too. So it's actually rastering out the graphic. Now this, with vector lines, we can actually take this path information and we can assign bits to it. So we've got some different bit tools that we can use. One is select bit, where we can go and choose any profile within the library of bits, and we can instruct that bit to go a certain depth, and then we can tell it an inset of inside or outside of the line. And then we click OK, and then it'll follow that path. So now when this part is going to be routed with the machine, I just told it to use a 60-degree V-groove. It's going to call that bit out when it's time to insert that bit for running your project, and it's going to follow this line around and plot this project out rather than it going line by line like doing the raster graphics. Okay, so that is a nice little bevel edge to our piece, but we're also going to want to cut this out and have it be a freestanding shape in the end as well. So let's use our cut path tool. And cut path tool is an automatic shape cutout tool. So it will automatically add tabs and follow all the way around a shape with the selected bit that you want to cut this out with. So an 1/8 inch is usually the default, and 1/8 inch is perfect for softer materials like pine and poplar and even an oak. You can probably get away with doing an 1/8 inch bit, although in the harder materials I prefer to use the 3/16 inch bit because it's much more robust and it's going to handle the more dense, difficult to cut materials. But we'll leave it on 1/8 inch as a default here. And then these are tabs, so these are little areas that it's not going to cut all the way through, so that is held into place. So when it's cutting it out of the machine, it does not fall out. And then we've also got some other settings here which you can create also more inset, but mostly you're just going to tell it which side of the line that you're going to cut out, on an inside or an outside cut. And of course we're making a sign here and we want this to cut on the outside edge and the outside edge of our bevel additionally. And then we can even hide cutout, which hides the part that we're cutting away with the waste part of our board. So especially when you're showing a project to a customer or a client that you want them to see their sign, you can show them exactly what it looks like here. So let's hit accept, and we can look at our little plaque cut out there. Let's click the square board button to snap it back to the front, and then let's start adding some text to this. This is just going to be like a house number sign. So let's click on the board and let's just put like a street address number, and then we can select a font that looks like a nice font for doing a street address sign. And then instead of raster, we're going to use outline here, and then click OK. Alright, let's scale this up, and we're still snapping to that grid, so this makes it really easy to scale this and keep it centered, and helps it fit into the space. So there's a very nice little sign. A lot of times with the V grooves, people will spray paint it black and then they'll sand the surface off, so just the groove part is then black or whatever color you've painted it, and it makes it really stand out. So we could just be finished here, but let's explore this a little bit more. Let's double click on the text to edit it, and let's do this as a centerline option as well, so we can see that if you have the centerline feature, then this might be an even nicer looking choice for your finished product. Okay, so here's our basic sign. There's one other tool I want to go over. Let's grab the arc tool and let's just draw some shapes. Just a quick shape here. Okay, so we have this other tool up here called Select Depth Profile, and this is another very useful vector drawing tool. This allows you to choose between several kind of preset carving patterns for V carving. So it starts shallow, goes deep, and in a very angular way or a more curving way, so it slopes down to a deeper depth and then back up. And then this side over here is actually using a bull nose bit to do the same kind of profiles. So you can select these and actually type in the depth of how deep you want these to go, and you can flip them. So some of these have a very definite start and end point, and you can reverse those to flip them whichever direction they go, and then those show up actually here exactly as it shows. It follows the path using that profile. Let's turn the grid lines off. So you can actually do some neat carving techniques and little decorative pieces here and there with this tool. There's one other tool that we didn't talk about on that drawing toolbar, and that's the route tool here. And this is used with these select depth profile pieces here. When you click on that tool, it actually allows you to change the kind of center point of that profile. So the center point where it gets the deepest and fattest, you can actually move that around and adjust it to fit your design. So if we want this to be a longer taper here and the fattest part to be down here as part of that curve, which looks pretty good, we could do that there. So that is that basic tool, and of course that can be applied to any line drawings you add to your board. And as always, save your files to your computer.